So do you want to know all of my little secrets and all the little tools that I use to supersize my plants? Stick with me and I'll divulge everything. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So today we're probably not going to be looking quite so many plants, so if that's what you're looking for, maybe this isn't a video for you. But for the people that always get a bit kind of excited about the tips and tricks and tools that I use to kind of keep my collection going the way that it is, this is the video for you, because I'm going to show you all my little weird things that I do and what I use in order to help my plants grow stronger, control situations, and also make sure that the plants are getting the best possible care. Before we dive into that though, little kind of update, announcement-y kind of thing. I've been working away for a good few months in the background, setting up my own website for the channel. So you should see that in the description down below. And that will be where you can find all of my favorites, links to some of the things that I mentioned on the videos. I'll be posting a bit more on Instagram again now and kind of linking back to that because I can kind of give a bit more information that way. So hopefully you all will check it out and let me know what you think. I will also be linking or kind of updating some of the events that I'm going to be doing throughout the year that I might be at, just in case you wanted to see if I'm going to be at the event that you're going to be at, and you can always come and say hello. I always love meeting all of you in person. So without further ado, however, let's get into some of the tools that I use. Starting off strong, and it might not seem like the most exciting thing. As I said, this video is not going to have as many plants. Look at the plants behind me, but we're not going to be looking at plants in front of me for this video. Pots, clear pots, game changer, complete game changer for me. And I know I've shown these on a lot of my plants recently. There are holes in these pots. And the way that I kind of put the holes into the pots, probably not the safest thing in the world, but outside, and I use basically a soldering iron. So you can just get a really cheap soldering iron and just poke some holes or burn some holes into these pots just to give extra aeration. I do like this quite a bit. I do like the tower pots as well that I've got, the arrow tower pots. But if you can't get them where you live, you might be able to get clear orchid pots. And these can pretty much do the same thing. You just need to put some extra holes into it. Generally, if they're orchid pots, they'll have spectacular drainage anyway. But game changer for sure. You can see the roots a lot better for most of these things. There's no guesswork. They can be a bit more expensive. So there is that. I'm not going to kind of hide behind that. But yeah, if you are kind of the person that worries a bit and kind of wants to know what's happening at any given time, not just for semi-hydro, by the way. This is also really good for soil mixes as well, because again, you can see when the roots are kind of growing in, and it can give you really early indications if you're worried about things like root rot or even kind of soil mealybugs. You might not always see those, especially if you've got quite a bit of perlite, but this is for sure one of the things that I find really helpful just for my own sanity and peace of mind. The next thing might seem a bit odd, and some of you have seen it on some other videos, and for demonstration purposes, obviously empty pot, but say I have got a large pot somewhere. This is probably going to be more useful for the large pots, and this is the thing that I'm going to be talking about. Sorry, mine's looking a bit less than clean, but I do need to find like a cleaner for it. I just don't know where it is at the moment. But yes, something like a turkey baster. But yes, so if you've got pots that sit in drip trays, they might be big pots, they might be higher up on your shelves, and you're worried about flushing it and having to move the pot so you can kind of water it, and maybe it's not in an easy position to do that, what you can do is leave the pot in a decent enough kind of drip tray. You might want to get a slightly deeper drip tray so you can kind of water it and not worry about everything spilling over. But with something like a turkey baster, you can go in and basically suction out the water slowly. It will take a bit of time to suction out all of the water from the actual drip tray. but it does help, and it helps speed up the process of when you're watering your plants. It just makes my life a bit easier, and hopefully if you're going to use something similar to this, might make your life a bit easier as well. And I don't remember if this was a tip that I saw from somebody else. It might have even been Plantarina that was kind of using this years ago. I'm sure she still does if it is one of her kind of things. But yeah, invaluable. Over the years, this has saved me from so many things. When I've overwatered something or things are about to spill out, I always have my trusty Hygrometer somewhere nearby when I've got all of my watering cans and everything. As I said, some of you might have noticed this before, and I will kind of go in and quickly go, whoops, I've overwatered, suction things out really quickly, makes for a much happier life. And in a similar vein, you can find something like a siphon, basically. And this is one of the siphons that you kind of pump it up. People that have got, I think this is also meant to be used for fuel, potentially, sometimes. I don't know. But I think people that maybe have got aquariums probably are completely aware of this. So you might be able to see that little kind of angled bit, at least on mine, is what would go into a much larger drip tray. This is kind of when you've got big buckets of things under plants, basically. And you can put that in there. You kind of pump it at the top, and as long as this is above the level of where you want this to drip, so it always needs to be over it, because I think it kind of works with a certain kind of process. I can't remember what it's called. I might see if I can remember, and I'll put it somewhere at the top. And basically you pump it up, and then eventually if there's enough water flowing through, it will just keep doing it itself, and it will just empty out whatever is in that drip tray into, make sure there's a container underneath it. Usually a watering can would be your friend there. But it might seem weird, but again, can you imagine if I had a massive pot and I was sitting there with my turkey basin? You don't have to imagine it. I used to live this because I've just had to recently replace my siphon. And I will say that my original siphon lasted for about 4 years before it kind of fell apart. So it wasn't too bad. I don't think it was more than like maybe 10 to 12 pounds. It's expensive potentially, but kind of useful. And then you can imagine if it was a big plant and I was doing this, I can still do this if you want to just keep the cost down and just get the one thing. But eventually, if you've got enough of the bigger plants, the siphon will be your friend. It won't do so well for the smaller pots like this one, but if you've got a mixture of stuff and you water quite a few things, this will be your friend, basically. Same thing with the siphon. Now, circling back to pots, and I know a lot of you have seen these 3D designs, basically, of cash pose, and you can find these, if you're based in Canada, you can find these on North's shop, and I will link it down below. And game changer. And we were talking about this with North for a while, basically, because I've got the other thing that I might do. Remember the clear pots I was talking about before? I'm sorry, this is a bit not a clean, but you can see this is just a disposable plastic cup that I've done the same thing that I would do with my orchid pots and just kind of poke the holes in with the soldering iron that I was talking about before. But the benefit of these things, barring the fact that they can come in all different shapes and colors and everything like that, is the pot disappears inside of something that's much more decorative. Some of you have asked if it's made a difference, and again, this is a discussion we were having with North a while back. Yes, it does. Specifically, you'll see the real benefit to this in the summer months, because it just helps make sure that substrates don't dry out quite as quickly. There are some benefits as well in the winter as well, but if you're using something like semi-hydro, because I know a lot of us will struggle with semi-hydro when you've got that just a clear pot and it's near a light source, is you might get algae. Usually if you've got it in something like a cash pot and you've started it that way, there's less of a chance that you're going to get algae, and if you do, it won't kind of grow at an alarming rate, basically, because it doesn't really get as much light, because the cash pot itself is actually creating shade, which isn't something that algae particularly likes, as far as I understand it all, basically. So yeah, really handy, and they really have been a game changer, basically, mainly because I can personalize my collection a bit more, and you're probably seeing different cash pots all over the place in different colors and combinations, which is great, fantastic. Basically, it's kind of meant that, especially in the summer months where it gets ridiculously hot in here and I need to be watering all the time, this means that I don't have to do it quite as frequently. So really, really cool. It doesn't have to be these, by the way. It could be any cache pose that you might want to use. But yeah, anybody with a large collection understands the issue that if you're trying to put a cache po onto everything, it can get really expensive, especially if you're buying kind of decorative ones that might be kind of glazed ceramic, and all these things can get very expensive very quickly. A good tip for that is if you really want to keep budgets low and you're not particularly worried about aesthetics, or this might even fit with your aesthetics, you can, and I think this is something that Jane Perrone on the Ledge podcast mentions a lot, thrift stores or secondhand stores or charity shops in the UK are going to be your friend. A lot of the times you can get things that are not meant as decorative cache pose, but you can probably get them for less than £1 or around £1 or $1, or depends on where you live. They're usually not particularly expensive, and it's also quite good because essentially you are reusing something that somebody else did not want without breaking the bank. The reason why I said aesthetics is because the designs are a bit questionable and vintage at times, but as I said, some people are kind of like really into that kind of vintage look, or they kind of like everything being a bit more mismatched. Perfect. That ticks multiple boxes for you if that is you. But yeah, cache pose, game changer. Now something else, and we'll go a bit more technical now at this point. So some of you that have been here for a while probably would remember my little Govee thermostat, thermometer kind of smart device. These have also come down in price ridiculously. I will try to either link these all down below in the description of the video, or put a link to the website where you can find all the links for this specific video's kind of items, basically. But yes, so this was really cool because it gave me a good indication of kind of what was happening in my conservatory. This is particularly good if you've got a plant room, but if you've got something like an IKEA cabinet, that could also help, having something like this hanging in there, basically. The thing that this will do is basically you can set this up, and there's a different one that I'm kind of holding up to show you in just a moment. You can set it up so it can send you notifications to your phone if the humidity is too high or too low. You can set the threshold. Same thing for the temperature. And it just basically gives you that peace of mind if you've got plants that you really care about in a certain place, like an IKEA kind of cabinet, or like I've got my conservatory, it might be a room that you have for your plants. This will give you a good indication of kind of what the situation is and alert you when, say for instance, you're not aware, you've got all your plants in a room, and for some reason the radiator now, when it's winter, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, the radiator kind of like fails and it doesn't heat up that room and the temperature drops significantly. If you're not around and you're not checking in on it really frequently, you might not realize and you might get some cold damage on your plants. If you've got something like this, it gives you an extra peace of mind because it will send you a notification on your phone. For instance, I've set it anything under 15 degrees Celsius to send me a notification on my phone going, you might want to check in on that, see what's going on. So that's good. Same thing goes for the summer, and I'll tell you how I use this in the summer, is if it kind of, I've given it an alert, I think for 35 degrees Celsius or 30 degrees Celsius, I can't remember there, and it just sends me a notification to my phone, and it's more of a reminder for myself to go, dum-dum over here woke up in the morning half awake whilst trying to drink coffee and water all the plants and forgot to open the window, so the plants are slowly roasting, basically. So it might be an idea to then open a window, basically. So yeah, really, really is a lifesaver for a lot of things. Now, the next step up, and this will do all of this and more. So I've kind of kept both because I already had this, so why not, basically, but you don't have to, basically. I got this because it did something extra which I needed it to do, and this is a much smaller device. This is not as easy to hang, I find, as this one. And again, I can't remember which one this is. It's just called a temperature and humidity sensor. Again, I will put links down below, basically. So with this, the reason why I got this one specifically, I have found a way to hang it. And if I can remember during editing, I'll take a picture and add it here. And let's just say the like Velcro plant ties are doing the mostest. I've made it a little kind of harness / sling for it to kind of sit in. It's hysterical. Doesn't look great, but it's fine. It serves the purpose that it needs to do. But Same thing with this, you can set up the same exact notifications that I was talking about there. You can also check it on your phone if you want to see what the temperature has been like overnight. Same thing that the Govee will do as well. It will give you that kind of range just so you can see, because a lot of people might worry, especially when it's winter and it's getting cold, especially if you're not going to be using that much of the energy to keep heating up these places. It gives you an indication. Same thing goes for humidity. So if you're really worried that the humidity drops too much, having something like this that is constantly taking measurements really gives you that peace of mind, and it can check and see what's going on and what's happening. The reason why this has got extra bits on it is because this, and I think the new Govees do that, they do that in the sense that some of the newer models that might be more expensive might have that connection to other devices. When I bought that one, it didn't. But this one connects to a smart plug. So guess what I've done? I have set up something on here, which is an automation. You can do it on its own app. And I can say to it, okay, you know what? When it hits 15 degrees and the temperature drops too much, because I've only got one really crappy radiator in this room that's connected to the radiators of the house, so it doesn't do very much. It's a bit of a struggle bus. It always has been. So there's always a second heater in here which is electric. Not great for the environment. However, I do have solar panels, so a lot of the times it just goes off the solar panels. And with this, what it will then do is if it drops below 15 degrees, it sends a signal to the smart plug automatically and switches on the radiator. Same thing goes, and I've given it a top threshold and I've said, okay, if it reaches 20 degrees, switch off the radiator. There's no point of burning through electric if it's reached the temperature, and it will keep doing that as often as it needs to do it. But imagine that so that's an example. And imagine that, for instance, for something like humidity. If you're really worried and you've got really drastic fluctuations of humidity for some reason in your space throughout the day, say for instance at night time you get lovely kind of 60-70% humidity, lovely for the plants, probably less lovely if you're living in that space, and then say maybe in the middle of the day for some reason it drops all the way down to 10, less than ideal for the plants. They won't turn into dust, but they really won't like it basically. And you're the kind of person that maybe runs a humidifier, not a dehumidifier like I do. And again, you can set up a dehumidifier for the same thing. Like if you're worried about too much humidity, you can set it up so if it hits too high of a humidity level, switch on the dehumidifier. Conversely, if you want to have higher humidity levels and it drops too much, you can say, okay, if this drops below 60% humidity, switch on the humidifier. If it then reaches 70 or 80% humidity, switch off the humidifier. Ta-da! I know some of the humidifiers, the more expensive Levoiti type humidifiers, do that automatically. But if you've got a slightly cheaper one and you don't want to be spending an awful lot of money, I don't think this or the plug is particularly expensive. Definitely this and the plug is a lot cheaper than a Levoit, I'm pretty sure. So you could do this whilst keeping the stuff and the devices that you're already accustomed to, basically. So yes, very cool little devices. The next thing on the list is a jeweler's loupe or something like a magnifying glass, and I even changed the batteries. So I don't know how this is going to come up on the camera, but you might be able to see if I just switch that off. You can see that there are two lights there, and if I pull it on the other side, the other light switches on. So basically what this is you kind of use it as a bit of a magnifying glass, and this will be a lifesaver if you think you've got some form of really tiny pest. It might be something like spider mites, anything like that. It's really, really quite useful. And you can kind of definitely check to make sure. This is also for the people that are like slightly geeky and scientific, a bit like me, and just kind of go, ooh, what do these pests look like up close? Warning, they're not great looking. But if you're really curious, this will really help you kind of really zoom in on that. If you don't have something like this, I'm not telling you to go and buy something like this, but if you don't have something like this, something like a simple magnifying glass will be fine, especially if you've got someone randomly, one of those randomly like lying around. Or, again, something that if you don't want to buy anything, then potentially using something like the zoom on your phone to be able to check in on that as well. It will do exactly the same thing, and it can be a bit of a lifesaver because it just makes it really, you're much more sure that, you know what, I think I've got something like spider mites, or I think I've got this thing, or I think I've got this thing, this will give you a much closer view and just kind of go, I am sure I have that now. Oh no, I need to deal with it. So yeah, on the topic of pests, and I know this is possibly the most pathetic thing in the world, but everybody's got big spray bottles for kind of spraying neem oil or whatever your preferred spray might be for dealing with pests. However, because of the sheer level of like mealybugs that I have to deal with in here on a regular basis, something like this really does make my life a lot easier. And this, by the way, is just rubbing alcohol, basically. So for mealybugs, it's really simple for me to just pick it up really quickly, spray, spray, spray. They die, which is great. I'm pretty sure they die, or at least that fluffiness all goes away, basically. And yeah, it's just easier for me to kind of pick it up. And it's small. I think this was meant to be something like a travel toiletry thing, basically. So if you're going and traveling, you would fill this up with your toiletries and use that. But I had one left over, didn't have any use for the spray element of it, so used it for this. Similar kind of vein to that, it's always a good idea, and I always try to have something like tweezers just lying around. They're not particularly expensive ones. I think these came as a set with some like mini gardening tools as well, and this is quite good if you want to kind of go in. Predominantly, I would say, for most of the kind of pests that we're going to be dealing with, that's going to be there in order for you to pick it up. This might work for things like scale or mealybugs. Spider mites are probably going to be too small for this. Same thing, fungus gnats aren't going to be there for too long for you to be able to do this. So it's predominantly going to be for something like mealybugs. But having something like a tweezer can help you kind of reach difficult places without having to move everything around too much. On to other small little things that I might use, and I will bring this in and show it to you. You don't have to get something like this. I think this was actually a cleaning brush for something like a dehumidifier or even a humidifier. But something like a small paintbrush is probably more going to be what you're going to be looking for. I just didn't have a paintbrush, so I'm just like, I'm not going to buy something. I can just use this random thing that I don't use for anything else. So this, or a paintbrush, is something that you might use. You can also use, I think, it's trickier, I find it, but you can use Q-tips, basically. But something like this, or a paintbrush, is going to be ideal, especially if you're going to be trying something out like hand pollinating anthuriums. So this would be what you would use, or a paintbrush, to brush off the pollen when it's at the male stage, to brush it into a little baggie, potentially then freeze that pollen. So when the female stage comes up, then you can potentially use the same brush. And a lot of times, if I'm not pollinating loads of different things, I might even leave the brush in with the actual baggie in the freezer with the pollen. Because a lot of the times, it doesn't matter what brush you have, a lot of the pollen would still be stuck on the little bristles. So I just leave that in there, bring it out, and then I've got something that I can quickly brush over the actual inflorescence or the kind of female stage and more receptive stage with the pollen and everything. And it just makes my life a lot easier. As I said, you could potentially try doing that with a Q-tip. The problem with a Q-tip, I find it's less forgiving, if that makes sense. But there are things that you could use. But any kind of brush that you have, as long as it's a small brush, big brushes get a bit faffy, would really help with something like that, basically. Ooh, and this is something really cool that I only saw from somebody else the other day. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Maria from Bloom and Grow Radio, and I'm pretty sure that's now a changed name. If it has, I will add it at the top there. But I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm pretty sure, I think Maria found this out from somebody else as well. And it's not anything like particularly exciting, but you can get microfiber gloves. And I think the ones that I found, there was a set of 2 sets of gloves, basically. And this is not for you to be going out in the cold or anything like that. However, and I'm going to look ridiculous, I look like a smurf. But best thing ever, because if you'd imagine, let me see if I've got, can I bring a leaf somewhere so you can see anything that has got a leaf? So say the plant behind me here and it's dusty. All I would need to do is just ran my hands on the front and on the back of the leaf all the way down. Ta-da! Dusted. And it makes the process a lot easier, I find, and a lot more fun. I'm more likely to do it because me, like a lot of people, do not bother or can never be bothered to clean plants. But saying that, if you've gone through the effort of, you don't have to buy this, you can just have like microfiber or cloths around the house and do the same thing. But for me, the reality was, yes, I've got that, yes, I could use it. Do I bother to do it? No. This is a bit more exciting. I'm just like, I get to like put on the gloves and go and like dust things. Listen, makes sense in my head, and if it means that I'm going to do something that I generally avoid doing, worth every penny. I don't think these are particularly expensive either, but yeah. Microfiber gloves for the win. And I'll finish off with something, again, a 3D printery kind of things, and I've talked about these so many times, mainly because I love them. So what I use as orchid mounts, but there just could be any form of mount, and these again are from North. Very, very cool. These are 3D printy kind of designs, and I did my own one recently, which is just the kind of standard. It's got a bit of a hook at the top, it's got loads of holes, and this would be more for kind of mounting things that I do not want to have lips around, and I just want to have pure sphagnum moss, and then I can attach the kind of string or wire that I want to put across for it to keep it there, and it just makes it a lot easier. Rather than having to faff around and do things and set up things and find bits of wood and try to kind of do that, all those things. If you are the handy dandy type and you love doing that because it gives you something to kind of potter around with, by all means do you. I don't have the time. Wonderful. Game-changing things basically that these are. So really, really enjoy using kind of mounts that are kind of purpose-built, if that makes sense. But yeah, that is everything I wanted to touch on. As I said, not so much of a here's a plant, let me show you kind of video, but these are the things that make my life easier when it comes to caring for my collection. Things that I would have never done before, I now do, like something like cleaning down my plant leaves. Things like the siphons and the turkey baster are just my day-to-day go-tos because it just means that watering is a lot easier and I don't have to stress about it quite so much. But yeah, so these are all the little random tools that I use. I am very curious if you've got any random things that you use to care for your collection, things that are potentially not meant to be for what we use them for, but actually do find a purpose in our collections. Do let me know down below. I'm pretty sure all of us want to know, because I'm pretty sure we all use random little weird things as well. I think the earliest thing that a lot of people might use at the very beginning of their career, maybe this was me, maybe I'm just an 80s child and I used to do this when I was very young. Has anybody used like kind of old like soup spoons or kind of like ladles that nobody's using in the kitchen and just use that instead of like a shovel or like what they're called, a trowel? I don't know what the words are, but you know, like a scoopy thing for soil and stuff like that. That's the one thing that I think most people at some point, I'm assuming, have used that wasn't its intended purpose, but it's now permanently used for that, basically. I love stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.